Marie, you may have to DM. I'm great. Thanks so much. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, this piece is called Leap 001 because it's the first time I found the edge of the quote metaverse and started what became a series of many jumps off of the edge and documentation of the edge of these spaces. This particular world is Somnium, and on the day that I photographed this, I believe in January, I had been interviewing the creator of Somnium, Artur, and I was on assignment for National Geographic magazine, and I wanted to know some kind of typical adventure questions like what is the highest point and what is the furthest point, and is there an edge? And Artur pointed to a mountain in the distance, and he said that if I went to that mountain and climbed to the top and I flew off of the top of that mountain as far as I could fly until I landed, and then if I walked another hour or longer, that I would reach the edge of the world, and that it was like a flat edge that I could jump off of. And so on that day, I made my first lengthy journey to the edge, and now I'm hundreds of edges into the documentation of the edges of these kinds of spaces. Well, I think one of the interesting questions is how we define an edge, because we'll see even in this exhibit, some of the edges are edges that you can jump or fall off of, and some of the edges are actually perimeters. They're places that we're not supposed to go, or that we're not supposed to see, or that we're not supposed to pass beyond. So If we talk about edges, we're talking about visible and invisible divisions in the world. And so we are surrounded by those divisions at all times in all shapes. These are quite literal. These are quite literal edges, especially when they're cliff-like promontories like we see in these three. But I think of edges around us all the time, especially now after this series. But yes, I think on the topic of like where I think on the topic of the edges I've photographed in the physical world, I've certainly gone to very, 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 very remote places in my work in national parks, in the Himalayas, my work in Denali, work looking at antiquity smuggling in Africa. I've gone to the edges of so many places. Yeah, this is a very natural continuation of that journey. I think it still follows all the same rules. It's different, of course, if I'm making a screenshot than if I'm in a virtual world like Somnium or VRchat where I'm holding a camera in my hand. I mean, in some of these worlds, I have a camera in my hand that has controls. Light is hitting the skin of my avatar. Light is hitting the surroundings, and I move through it as though I were a physical being photographing in real time and space. That is a different experience than photographing screenshots in something like Second Life or Crypto Voxels or Roblox or things like that. But the framing always still follows the same rules. I'm still interested in the composition and the depth or lack of depth and the color palettes. It's still always about positive and negative space and how I think about the layout of that image within the rectangular frame. I didn't understand the first word. Which kind of photographer does it make me feel like a nature photographer, or what kind of photographer did you say? Oh, an urban photographer. Okay, so I mean, in this exhibit, we're not showing images that are social scenes, but I have certainly photographed things that felt like urban street photography. In Decentraland, I photographed Fashion Week, and I photographed Banksy's, sales that he made last year inside of Sotheby's. And when I'm inside of a scene, photographing inside of a crowd of people and avatars, then it feels much more like an urban photojournalistic scene. When I go to places like these edges, it does not feel like any part of the work that I do in the natural world, because so much of this project is also about a kind of the performance that comes with it and about a lot of the motion capture. It's not actually as interesting for me just to go to the edge and photograph that static edge in emptiness, which is why I became a character within these scenes jumping, because it really became about the act of the leap and of like trying to understand what was on the other side of this built infrastructure. And the results were really interesting, because when you jump off of one world, it is not at all like when you jump off of another world. I actually think we should walk around the corner here to the right, because there is a video piece, and video became really important to this body of work, that showed and sounds like what happens on the other side, like on the other side of metaverse death. So this is especially interesting to me, because when I jumped off of Somnium, off the edge, it was not like worlds like VRchat or others where the user immediately resets. The fall in Somnium is an infinite fall, and you fall into something that I think sounds like maybe what amniotic fluid is like baby in the womb, or like the other side without like physicality. And so when you fall, uh, you fall until you reset the original like portion of the settings of Somnium within its interface. It doesn't reset you to an origin point. You don't jump back up to the top. You fall infinitely, and you can kind of see your body. You can a little bit see your hands, but it's a glitched like approximation of where the body once was. And I think this is a really interesting reflection on the builder, on someone like Artur, and how Artur thought about making it take an hour and a half to get to the edge. And so he put that time scale into this. And then to think about what it means to have the fall not be a quick fall, like something like a swipeable, quick, social digital thing, but of an infinite fall. And I was really fascinated by that. Yeah, I think that question is interesting, because again, in places like Somnium, there are moments that take longer to get to. So when I walk to the edge in Somnium, I have to wait. I have to wait an hour and a half for the sun to rise or set, and so I would leave my body there, and I would return to check in on different times of days. So my body would be crumpled up on the ground there, and I would leave my VR headset running, and I would come back to see what time of day it was, make the photographs. But for the most part, I can control what times of day I see. Um, and we're looking right now, these worlds, this one called Underworld in Between Sun. Oh, Oh, I didn't have my talk button down. I think you just missed everything I was saying. Sorry. um, this image I'm standing in. Okay, so in a world like this Minecraft server of this Underworld in Between Sunrise video, there is another kind of time frame. I can use admin privileges and God powers to travel through time much more quickly and to travel through the materials themselves. So this was the first world where I started to realize that I could see things that no user could see if I could gain the admin privileges. And in this Minecraft server, with those powers, I would go under the ground and travel through long distances, often beyond where any users had been building or visiting even. And so as I traveled at high speed, traveling what would normally take, weeks maybe to walk or months to walk, I would see in the distance, and you can see it in this frame, these tubes and lava tubes and tunnels. I would see them beginning to appear, and the person who created this world told me that it was the seed creating the world as I traveled. So especially in a place where people had never visited before, it was birthing parts of this world in the distance as I traveled. So this was really interesting because I could literally see the birth of, metaverse worlds and the physicality of within them of these tunnels and tubes. So each world has its own time frame. This one I can travel with godlike time and chat. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Yeah, let me think about that. Think I think I think one of beyond the edges, I think one of the things that I started being fascinated by was the in between. That when I realized that my avatars could fly and go past where the builder would force a kind of death or a reset, and I could cheat death and I could go under the worlds, then I was able to start seeing through through the worlds, like in this underworld 22 under the ice. Uh, there was something really powerful about being able to see uh, through the surfaces that we can't see in this walking world, to what would it be like to penetrate through the ground and see up through these landscapes. And in worlds like VRchat, I was able to find the answer to that. And again, I think video played a really important role here, where the movement through these spaces was as important as the still frame itself. And so I had not made a lot of moving image studies in this way in other bodies of work, but this kind of journey demanded it. And then we also have the perimeters. There is a no. You go ahead. You can answer any. You can ask any questions. I was going to say we could go over to the perimeter studies, because we're in Decentraland, and one of the most edges on the edge of Decentraland has disappeared. Um, I documented it many times, and sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not, and it hasn't been there for quite a long time. I can no longer find the edge of Decentraland. Perhaps it was a glitch that's been fixed, so we could go over and take a look at that perimeter fence of Decentraland. Yeah, I'm over here around in the corner at the night perimeter fences. So my original plan was to take everyone on a run out to the perimeters and around central. It's I cannot find it anymore. I was really interested in this particular boundary because it showed beyond it an unbuilt area that really makes me think about the rebar, the metal rods inside of concrete before the concrete is poured. So in photographing this, it really felt like I was photographing future infrastructure and future real estate, unbuilt, like left as a construction zone. And there was a boom time where people were spending very, very large amounts of money to essentially pour concrete in this world. We are past that time now, but the idea of the metaverse and a persistent spatial web still has billions and potentially eventually trillions of dollars being invested in it. So in documenting these kinds of partially constructed edges, I'm documenting future infrastructure and existing investments. It is, except for that the construction boom may actually disappear entirely because of the false scarcity concept. I believe in like a future of dimensional spatial storytelling but I do not believe in the speculation of land sales and the hype cycles that were associated with that. So in some ways, this documentation is a documentation of 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 a hype cycle that may actually completely dematerialize. Well, I didn't I had no plans on making photographs like this. This was very organic. I was on a traditional documentary style assignment to photograph life and culture. And so my original concepts around what I would photograph were much more about events and socialization, like a Sotheby's auction or a party or like these kinds of gatherings or ceremonies. Even I've documented some kind of crazy ceremonies with many people inside of these spaces. So I'm kind of just following organically where both my I mean, as most photographers do, where my interest is, but also just what I think is like the new edge of culture, the new edge of infrastructure. So if I keep finding stimulating new worlds and edges, I will photograph them. But for me, that edge may move back to being a cultural edge, and it may move back to photographing people and avatars. I'm doing all of these and creating the groupings. And so I don't do one and not documenting. I'm documenting all of it.